Across the pantheon of great villains, there are a few that stand out to me for different reasons. Some villains are unhinged, some are unstoppable, and there are some that you just love to hate. But what is it that makes a villain ominous? Now, when I say ominous, I mean threatening, or giving the impression that something bad is going to happen. I believe when it comes to striking fear in the hearts of characters and audiences alike, there is a great example in the first season of The Legend of Korra, and his name is Amon. Before we get started, I just want to say that this video will contain spoilers for the first season of The Legend of Korra, so if you haven't seen it, please feel free to stop watching now. You have been warned. With that out of the way, let's get to it. Villains can be one of the funnest and most memorable aspects of a story. In this video, we will take a look at what you can do specifically to give your villain that sense of foreboding. For example, Thanos is a great villain. He's powerful, smart, and is able to test Earth's mightiest heroes by himself. But he's not really that ominous. Likewise, Joker and Magneto might be great antagonists in their own right, but they don't really give a clear sense of foreboding. By the nature of their character, we can pretty much expect that something bad will happen, but it doesn't always. So the question is, what is it about a villain that gives the audience that spine-tingling feeling of danger? I think studying Amon holds the answer. Let's start with the most basic point first. Amon has a tangible presence from the get-go. He shows up at the end of episode 1 and makes an appearance in 10 out of the 12 episodes of season 1. Why is this important? Oftentimes, villains can suffer from not being seen. In many stories, the villain maintains a kind of final boss feeling, where you don't actually get to witness them until almost the end of the story. This can be done intentionally, of course. For example, if you wanted to have a villain be mysterious, or have legends swirling around that can neither be confirmed nor denied, sprinkle enough of those tall tales throughout the story, and your only inference of what the villain is capable of is hearsay at best. This happens in all kinds of stories. I think this was true of Fire Lord Ozai from the original Avatar: The Last Airbender. I also think that in that instance, it was executed successfully. In that case, it turned out to be true that he was one of the strongest firebenders. Although I think the sense of tension around the final confrontation stemmed more from Aang's personal conflict of not wanting to take someone's life, rather than the threat of the villain himself. This is true of Galbatorix from the Aragon books as well. In that story, it was more important to create a sense of mystery of how he came to power and overcame all the Dragon Riders than it was to have a looming presence hanging around the main protagonist. And then the movie pretty much ruined that immediately.
Do not prolong my suffering.
Now, my point isn't that it's bad to have a distant villain. If you think about suspense or horror movies, it's more often what we don't see that terrifies us. Once the killer or evil entity is shown, it immediately becomes more relatable and less scary. It's why you barely see the shark in Jaws, or the creatures in most modern horror films. It can still lead to a scary villain, but one that relies on the preconceived fears of its audience, rather than the fears of the character. We are going to examine a villain who is able to create a very direct fear into the heart of the protagonist. A major way to give a villain that ominous level of threat is to give them a sense of power and influence over the hero. If you can render your hero into a state of helplessness, this can really bolster the threat level of your villain. Let's see what this looks like. For Amon, he can overcome even the strongest of benders, all without using the elements. For Korra, who is still a young avatar, she is cocky and full of bravado. When she realizes how skilled Amon is at combat, and how he can fight on par with some of the strongest benders, she's terrified. Giving Amon a skill that rivals the previous avatar puts him on an entirely different level than Korra, and she knows it. She worries that she won't be able to stop him, and even more that he will take away her bending, which is what makes her unique, especially as the avatar. As the story progresses, we learn that Amon actually is a bender, a proficient one at that. While at first glance this may appear to make him less ominous because he's a charlatan, it doesn't actually. Fans of the world of Avatar know that bloodbending is one of the most dangerous forms of bending, so even after Amon's secret is revealed, this makes him even more of a threat. First, it was previously thought that only skilled waterbenders could perform bloodbending during a full moon, when their power was strongest. But inheriting his father Yakon's special ability, Amon can bloodbend at any moment. Yakon uses this ability to rule the criminal underworld of Republic City, and to dodge accusations that he is a bloodbender. Bloodbending was thought to be impossible without a full moon. Second, Amon has discovered a way to alter people's physiology with bloodbending. It's never directly stated exactly how Amon is able to take away people's bending, but I've surmised that it is most likely an advanced form of chi blocking, which was able to temporarily stop benders from using their skills with a rapid succession of blows to their pressure points, if you will. Amon most likely found the main valve of bender's chi and just shut it off completely. This gives him a threatening aura to many characters of the show, not just Korra. Third, Amon can use his bloodbending psychically. Most bending presents itself with the application of martial arts. That's kind of what the show's known for. Each element has its own unique style of fighting stances and forms. They all manifest themselves in a physical way. Yakone and Amon can use bloodbending with only a thought. That is one of the reasons that Amon is so ominous, because even once Korra learns the truth, it doesn't change the fact that fighting him is going to be insanely difficult. He can still defeat her in physical combat. This also gives Amon the perfect toolset for a revolutionary figurehead posing as a non-bender. This is my last main point. There is a combination of two things that can elevate your villain from being a generic thug to an evil overlord. The first one is, what is their end goal? What is it that they want most? The second thing is, how do they go about achieving that desire? Let's take a quick look at some different villains. Palpatine from Star Wars wants to rule everything. He does this by enslaving and destroying entire planets and civilizations. Thanos from the Marvel Cinematic Universe ultimately wants to save life throughout the galaxy, but to do this, he wipes out half of sentient life. I mean, he could have just doubled the natural resources, right? But I guess that's beside the point. Amon doesn't want to destroy all life or slaughter people. In fact, throughout the show, he never kills anyone. His goal is to destroy an entire culture, a way of life for people. He stands to destroy not their bodies, but their identities. He will erase that part of people that sets them above the rest. It's why they call him the Equalizer. The symbol of his movement even stands for equal or flat. This is one of the things that gives him the greatest increase on his ominous scale. He is extremely disciplined and rational. Above all obstacles, he maintains his story of being a poor, non-bender oppressed by the evils of the bending elite. Even when he has opportunities to destroy the Avatar, he doesn't, because his plan is not yet ready, and the stage is not yet set.
I received your invitation, young Avatar. Our showdown, while inevitable, is premature. Although it would be the simplest thing for me to take away your bending right now, I won't. You'd only become a martyr.
It is only once he fails to maintain the strict rigor of his plan and unleashes his bending in front of his supporters that his whole scheme falls apart. First with his lieutenant and next with the masses. It's also okay to give your villain some nuance. Equality has been what Amon has touted for the entire show, but what he really is doing is rebelling against his father and his hatred for his own abilities. Amon was a tremendously gifted bender who lost himself on the line between genius and madness. The conclusion he arrived at was to erase bending for everyone, and this is why I think he is such a great villain.
The revolution may be built on a lie, but I think Amon truly believes bending is the source of all evil in the world.
It's also okay to give your villain a tragic ending. Sometimes achieving a goal isn't as important as redeeming the things that truly matter.
The two of us together again. There's nothing we can't do.
Yes, Noatak.
Noatak. I'd almost forgotten the sound of my own name.
It will be just like the good old days.
At the end of the day, I really do love this character. I hope that you learned something from this study, and that maybe you have some new ideas for a great villain in your own story. If that's the case, feel free to share in the comments down below. Also, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you can catch every upload. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.